with an angry bite. But carrying the metal takes a stretching feat, a physical progression meant for you and me. The pockets drop and widen from the iron weight, the liable mechanic altering the fate. The cowhide takes the curving of the pelvic bone, a custom integration we have always known. It carries all the hammers in a velvet slide, erasing all the panic on the inner side. The tools remain securely in the drooping sack, a flawless navigation, never looking back. The rigid leather yields to a falling drape, a reliable defense in a working shape. The worn tool belt holding up the heavy gear, a loyal little partner in a passing year. We wore the bitter edges to a soothing bend. You cannot build a future with a fragile thread. I trust the faded cowhide and the words we said. The worn tool belt holding up the heavy gear, a loyal little partner in a passing year. We wore the bitter edges to a soothing bend. You cannot build a future with a fragile thread. I trust the faded cowhide and the words we said. We used to judge the carrying by a pristine line, a superficial logic crossing your design. But moving on the ladder requires a giving slack, a reliable companion always giving back. The belt adjusts to every single step I make, forgiving every burden and a past mistake. I buckle up the iron on my weary hip and navigate the weather on a steady trip. Pull the leather strap, feel the pocket give, hold the heavy wrench, find the way to live. The stretching is a blessing in a rugged form, a brilliant little shelter from a passing storm. I realize that hoping for a rigid start is missing all the yielding of a working heart. Love requires a carrying of the outer shell to navigate the building and to do it well. We let the gravity compress the leather base and validated everything in open space. I hang the heavy armor on the wooden rack, accepting all the safety of the looking back. The worn tool belt holding up the heavy gear, strap it, a loyal little partner in a passing year. Keep it safe, or the bitter edges to a soothing bend, and engineered a shelter for a working friend. You cannot build a future with a fragile thread. I trust the faded cowhide and the words we said. The belt is soft, the load is light. We are fine.
A leather wrap folding on a reading book, a guarding shield hiding in a quiet nook. We bought it with a flat and a pristine spine, a geometric border on a straight line. It pushed against the volume with a rigid press. But holding heavy novels takes a folding toll, a physical erasing of the rigid soul. The spine begins to gather up 100 lines. The fabric takes the thickness of the printed page. It loses all the aesthetic of a factory mold, becoming something tender, getting brave and old. It wraps around the covers with the velvet slide, erasing all the corners we attempt to hide. The hide surrenders tension to the paper stack, a reliable mechanic never looking back. The creased cover, wrapping up the heavy text. We wore the bitter angles to a velvet slide and engineered a shelter where the stories hide. You cannot read a future on a rigid slate. I trust the faded leather altering the fate. The creased cover, wrapping up the heavy text. We wore the bitter angles to a velvet slide and engineered a shelter where the stories hide. You cannot read a future on a rigid slate. I trust the faded leather altering the fate. To fight the bending with a nervous hand, a terrified illusion in a reading land. But time reveals the value of a yielding core, a flawless navigation opening the door. The jacket takes the shape of every passing tale, a physical devotion on a sailing trail. I run my open fingers on the wrinkled crease and feel the steady comfort of a sudden peace. Fold the leather down, read the printed word, keep the pages safe, save the things we heard. The wrinkling is an asset in a rugged form, a brilliant little shelter from a passing storm. I realize that hoping for an untouched gleam is missing all the magic of a waking dream. Love requires a rubbing of the outer shield to hold the heavy volume in an open field. We let the passing chapters wear the cowl hide out and washed away the center of a lingering doubt. I close the heavy novel in the fading light, accepting the devotion of the starry night. The creased cover, wrapping up the heavy text, a loyal little partner ready for the next. We wore the bitter angles to a velvet slide and engineered a shelter where the stories hide. You cannot read a future on a rigid slate. I trust the faded leather altering the fate. The spine is creased, the book is safe. We are fine.
Metal jaw resting on the working desk, a binding tool ready for a simple task. We push the silver staples in the sliding track. It punched the fragile paper with a single bite, a flawless execution in the fading light. But pressing down in anger takes a brutal feat, a chemical destruction of the you and me. The inner spring tangles in a vicious knot, a devastating error on the truth we got. I push the plastic handle to unite the page, a desperate maneuver on an empty stage. But metal grinds on metal and the wire bends, a miserable error where the binding ends. The staple mangles flat and chews the written sheet, a devastating picture of a sad defeat. The mechanism freezes in the metal binds, a tragic illustration of divided minds. A jam stapler tearing up the paper seam, a miserable ending to a working dream. I try to fix the volume but the iron locks, a physical disaster in a broken box. You cannot find a future when the gear is dead. I stare at the destruction of the tears we shed. The jam stapler tearing at the paper seam, a miserable ending to a working dream. I try to fix the volume but the iron locks, a physical disaster in a broken box. You cannot find a future when the gear destruction of the tears we shed. We acted like the tension was a given right, ignoring all the limits in the fading night. But forcing a connection on a broken joint is leaving all the damage at the breaking point. The pages scatter wildly on the wooden floor, a physical reminder we can try no more. I try to pull the wire, but the finger bleeds, a miserable failing of the daily needs. Push the metal down, hear the iron crunch, watch the paper rip, lose the morning rush. The binding was a poison to a steady frame, a devastating ending in a losing game. I realized that forcing an entangled spring is asking for the shattering of everything. Love requires a motion that is smooth and clear to navigate the joining in a given year. We bent the vital iron in a selfish rush and forced the conversation to a sudden hush. I dropped the ruined plastic in the garbage bin, accepting the disaster of the state I am in. The jam stapler tearing up the paper seam, a miserable ending to a working dream. I try to fix the volume, but the iron locks, a physical disaster in a broken box. You cannot find a future when the gear is dead. I leave the ruined metal and the tears we shed.
A rubber pouch sitting on a winter bed, a designated heater for the tears we shed. We poured the boiling water in the narrow neck to organize a comfort on the freezing deck. The plastic plug twisted to a heavy seal, a physical protection of the way we feel. But rotting in the closet brings a hidden wear, a microscopic damage in the open air. The rubber loses tension in the broken track. We brought it to the mattress for a cozy night, ignoring all the danger in the fading light. The boiling liquid seeps from the corrupted seam, a devastating error in a waking dream. The water burns the skin and floods the cotton sheet, a terrible betrayal of a sad retreat. The barrier surrenders and the water runs, the leaking bottle spilling on the sleeping space, a tragic little ruin in a lonely place. I try to wipe the liquid, but the burning stays, a miserable memory of the passing days. You cannot find a comfort when the seal is dead. I stare at the disaster in the empty bed, the leaking bottle spilling on the sleeping space, a tragic little ruin in a lonely place. I try to wipe the liquid, but the burning stays, a miserable memory of the passing days. You cannot find a comfort when the seal is dead. I stare at the disaster in the empty bed. We acted like the shelter was a given right, ignoring all the warning in the fading light. But holding on to rubber that is old and frail is guaranteeing sorrow on a sinking sail. The mattress is a puddle of a bitter heat, a physical translation of a dark defeat. I drop the empty vessel on the wooden floor, accepting that the warmth will return no more. Twist the plastic cap, see the water spill, feel the burning pain, lose the winter chill. The vessel was a danger in a sweet disguise, devastating ruin under weary eyes. I realized that trusting a corrupted hide is burying the logic on a dark divide. Love requires a vessel that is firm and tight to separate the danger from the fading light. We shock the fragile rubber in a careless move and ruined all the safety in a narrow groove. I walk away and leave it in the freezing air, accepting the disaster I cannot repair. The leaking bottle spilling on the sleeping space. Watch it pour. The tragic little ruin in a lonely place. Lose the heat to wipe the liquid, but the burning stays. A miserable memory of the passing days. You cannot find a comfort when the seal is dead. I leave the ruined rubber in the empty bed. The seal is dead. The bed is ruined. I am done.
We bought it with a brilliant and a coated blue, a pristine little vessel meant for me and you. It echoed with the rigid and the early night, but striking on the surface takes a rubbing fee. A physical progression of the you and me. The fingertips erase the shiny outer glaze. A blue enamel vanishes and leaves the gray, but underneath the blemish is a steady core. The metal settles deeply and it sinks for more. The resonance is warmer than the early start. A physical devotion of a beating heart. The iron loses vanity to find the tone. A beautiful vibration we have always known. The worn handpan, ringing in the evening air. A loyal little partner carrying the care. We wore the bright enamel to a naked steel, an engineered a frequency of how we feel. You cannot play a comfort with a rigid shell. I tap the faded metal working very well. The worn handpan, ringing in the evening air. A loyal little partner carrying the care. We wore the bright enamel to a naked steel, an engineered a frequency of how we feel. You cannot play a comfort with a rigid shell. I tap the faded metal working very well. We used to judge the audio by a flawless skin, a superficial vanity we wallow in, but striking the magic in the iron grain. A miserable instrument absorbing pains. I run my open palm across the dipping sloping, feel the steady anchor of a rising hope. Strike the metal dome, hear the heavy chord, feel the gentle curve, take the sweet reward. I realize that hoping for an untouched shine is missing all the resonance of your design. Love requires a rubbing of the outer blades to navigate the rhythm of the coming days. We let the past and fiction turn to metal gray, and validated every note we used to play. I strike the final chorus on the open stage, accepting the perfection of a turning page. Ringing in the evening air, playing loud, little partner carrying the care. Hear the sound, enamel to a naked steel, an engineered a frequency of how we feel. You cannot play a comfort with the rigid shell. I trust the faded metal working very well. The steel is tall, the cord is bright. We are safe.
plastic bar resting on a wooden beam, a measuring mechanic for a building dream. We bought it with a vibrant and a glowing green. It got it down the angle on a crooked floor, but sitting in the window takes a fading toll. A solar degradation of the liquid soul. The ultraviolet washes out the glowing dye. The chemical reduction looking at the sky. The liquid turns it cloudy in the vacant white, but floating in the center is a tiny space, a bubble navigating in a narrow case. It slides exactly perfectly the line, a physical devotion of your heart and mind. The color leaves the cylinder to face the sun, but gravity delivers when the day is done. The faded level resting on the slanted frame, a loyal little partner in a working game. We lost the vivid color to an empty clear, and engineered a balance in a passing year. You cannot find the center with a blinded eye. I trust the cloudy liquid looking at the sky. Faded level resting on the slanted frame, a loyal little partner in a working game. We lost the vivid color to an empty clear, and engineered a balance in a passing year. You cannot find the center with a blinded eye. I trust the cloudy liquid looking at the sky. We used to search the market for a shiny tool, a superficial logic of a working fool. But color is an option we can live without, erasing all the vanity and holding doubt. The bubble knows the planet in the pulling weight, a flawless calculation of a steady fate. I place the heavy iron on the rising wall and validate the angle to prevent a fall. Slide the plastic tool, watch the bubble move, find the steady ground, stay inside the groove. I realize that hoping for a glowing green is missing all the logic of a working scene. Love requires a reading of the inner core to navigate the building and to ask for more. We let the passing summer bleach the liquid out and washed away the center of a lingering doubt. I tap the little cylinder in the fading light, accepting the perfection of a steady sound. Faded level, resting on center frame. Find the line, loyal little partner in the working game. Keep it straight. We lost the vivid color to an empty clear, and engineered a balance in a passing year. You cannot find the center with the blinded eye. I trust the cloudy liquid looking at the sky. The hue is gone, the line is true. We are fine.
Yeah. A metal bar bending in an iron shape, a simple little tool for a grand escape. We pushed it in the center of the waiting screw, the dedicated binding meant for me and you. The 6 sides caught the tension in a perfect lock, but turning up the pressure. But turning up the pressure takes a brutal wear, a catastrophic error in the open air. We forced the silver lever with the selfish might, refusing to maneuver in the fading light. The sharp corners shave away into a curve, a devastating damage of a failing nerve. The hexagon becomes a simple rounded pin, a tragic little circle where the sorrows win. I push it in the opening to make a spin, but metal glides on metal, letting nothing in. To refuse is friction in the turning dies, a miserable failure under weary eyes. A strip key sliding in the iron hole, a tragic little ending of a working soul. I try to turn the lever but the metal slips, a devastating error on the sinking ships. You cannot find a structure when the edge is dead. I stare at the disaster of the tears we shed. The strip key sliding in the iron hole, a tragic little ending of a working soul. I try to turn the lever but the metal slips, a devastating error on the sinking ships. You cannot find a structure when the edge is dead. I stare at the disaster of the tears we shed. We acted like the tension was an endless deep, but guaranteeing success that we could always keep. But pushing past the limit breaks the holding gear. Miserable into a given year. The furniture is standing with an open joint. A wobbling disaster at the breaking point. I spin the useless iron in a futile trace. A permanent division in an empty space. Push the rounded bar, watch the metal turn. Failed to catch the grip, see the bridges burn. The damage is a poison to a steady hold. A miserable story getting dark and old. I realize that forcing a depleted edge is throwing all the meaning off a narrow ledge. Love requires a friction in the central core to hold the broken pieces and ask for more. We run the vital corners to a useless slide and ruined all the connection we try to hide. I dropped the ruined iron on the wooden floor, accepting that the holding will exist no more. The strap keeps sliding in the iron hole, a tragic little ending of a working soul. I try to turn the lever but the metal slips, a devastating error on the sinking ships. You cannot find a structure when the edge is dead. I leave the rounded metal and the tears we shed. The edge is round, the joint is loose. I am done, 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 done,
A metal jar resting on a bathroom shelf, a simple little weapon for the growing cell. We push a silver lever to engage the bite, a clean and perfect circle in the fading light. It's severed up the carrying with easy grace, a functional mechanic in a quiet space. But sitting in the moisture takes a hidden toll, a chemical destruction of the iron soul. The water infiltrates the little metal pin, a devastating error waiting to begin. And the iron oxidizes in a toxic red, erasing all the function of the words we said. I press the little handle with a heavy strain, expecting a conclusion to a passing pain. But metal grinds on metal in a hollow scrape. The blades refuse to open in a working shape. It crushes down the fingernail and leaves a tear, a miserable ending in the open air. The cutting is denied and the iron binds, a physical reflection of divided minds. The rusted clipper freezing on the metal track, a tragic limitation holding safety back. I try to make a line but all the edges break, a loud and clear reflection of the past mistake. You cannot make a separation clean and tight. I stare at the disaster in the fading night. We acted like the tension was a harmless tool, defying all the physics of a working rule. But forcing up an obstacle against a blade destroys the careful tuning that the maker made. The fingernail is shattered in a messy rip, a devastating anchor on a sinking ship. I try to push the iron through the rigid bone, but friction ruins everything I should have known. Squeeze the iron ring, feel the metal bind. Watch the tissue rip, leave the hole behind. The damage is an infection to a moving part, a tragic cancellation of a weary heart. I realize a forcing an unnatural cut is keeping all the avenues forever shut. Love requires instrument that functions clear to navigate the separation in a given year. We left the vital iron in a soaking test and ruined all the logic of a sweet request. I dropped the ruined metal in the garbage bin, accepting the disaster of the state I am in. The rusted clipper freezing on the metal track, a tragic limitation holding safety back. I try to make a line but all
vessel made of unglazed reddish clay, a porous little circle sitting on a tray. We bought it from an artisan a decade past. It felt a little rough up on the outer skin, a hollow preparation waiting to begin. But holding heavy soil takes a steady toll, a physical recording of a working soul. The water passes through the porous earthen wall, a daily repetition answering the call. The moisture leaves a mineral and white design, a ghost of an ocean crossing yours and mine. The pristine orange vanishes into a chalk. It loses all the aesthetic of a rigid mold. The roots expand and push against the rigid base. The clay surrenders vanity to build a home. The weathered pie resting in the evening light, a loyal little partner making matters right. We let the porous ceramic drink the bitter rain and engineer a shelter from the passing pain. You cannot grow a garden in a pristine glass. I trust the earthy vessel as the seasons pass. In the evening light, the weathered pie, a loyal little partner making matters right. We let the porous ceramic drink the bitter rain and engineer a shelter from the passing pain. You cannot grow a garden in a pristine glass. I trust the earthy vessel as the seasons pass. To judge the beauty by an untouched gleam, a superficial vanity inside the dream. But glossy little items suffocate the root, defeating all the logic of a bearing fruit. The white lines on the surface show the tears we shed, a physical translation of the words we said. I run my open fingers on the rugged side, accepting all the magic we attempt to hide. Pour the water down, watch the surface breathe, feed the heavy root, never ever leave. The damage is a blessing in an earthen form, a reliable protection from a passing storm. I realize that hoping for a flawless face is missing all the logic of a living space. Love requires a soaking of the inner wall. They capture all the substance and embrace it all. We let the heavy liquid ping the outside white, and validated every journey through the night. I place my hands upon the faded reddish clay, accepting the devotion of a working day. Need a shelter from the passing pain. You cannot grow a garden in a pristine glass. I trust the earthy vessel as the seasons pass. The clay is wide, the root is deep. We are safe.
A metal spike resting in a wooden grip, a dedicated weapon for a passing ship. We bought it with a razor and a pointed face, a dangerous addition in a quiet space. It shattered up the freezing of the winter black, a physical collision on the ticking clock. But striking on the crystal takes a heavy toll, a microscopic bending of the iron soul. The friction of the carbon rubs the danger out, erasing all the malice and the lingering doubt. The tip becomes a gentle and a rounded line, a custom alteration of the grand design. The wooden handle loses all the painted red, a visual recording of the tears we shed. The tool surrenders sharpness to a steady hand, a physical devotion we can understand. The iron loses temper to a steady stride, a beautiful progression, we are much alike. The worn pick, sliding on the frozen glass, a loyal little partner as the seasons pass. We ground the bitter sharpness to a gentle curve, and engineered an angle that will always serve. You cannot shape the water with a bite and slice. I use the faded metal looking very nice. The worn pick, sliding on the frozen glass, a loyal little partner as the seasons pass. We ground the bitter sharpness to a gentle curve, and engineered an angle that will always serve. You cannot shape the water with a bite and slice. I use the faded metal used to dig into the surface with a heavy force, a terrifying damage on a working course. But striking with the grain brings a deeper hue, a fundamental link in between me and you. The dull material leaves a flawless shining track, a visual devotion never looking back. I push the wooden handle in a steady glide and reveal the hidden beauty on the inner side. Hey, push the silver tool, feel the crystal heal, watch the shadow fade, find the open field. The damage is an acid in a rugged form, a brilliant little shelter from a passing storm. I realize that hoping for a cutting knife is ruining the rhythm of a steady life. Love requires a blending of the outer steel to organize the beauty and to make it real. We let the past and friction wear the anchor down and validated every journey through the town. I dropped the wooden handle on the dusty rack, accepting all the magic of a looking back. Sliding on the frozen glass, push it smooth. The loyal little partner as the seasons pass. Keep it safe, run the bitter sharpness to a gentle curve, an engineered an angle that will always serve. You cannot shape the water with a bite and slice. I trust the fading metal looking very nice. The edge is dull, the ice is clear. We are fine. We are fine.
A glass too. A glass tube mounted on a wooden frame, a calculated number in a rising game. We hung it on the bedroom by the windowsill to regulate the comfort of the winter chill. The red material climb inside the narrow track, a visual assurance we were coming back. But knocking on the timber takes a fatal fall, a sudden interruption on the bedroom wall. The wooden frame detaches from the iron hook, a devastating ending to the time it took. The glass explodes in pieces on the solid ground, a terrifying ending with a crushing sound. The red interior splashes on the wooden plank, a miserable failure of a broken bank. The numbers stand divided on the shattered wood, a permanent removal from the place we stood. The structure loses logic and the measure dies, a devastating failure under weary eyes. The shattered glass bleeding on the bedroom floor, a tragic limitation, asking nothing more. I try to read the temperature, but line is dead. A physical reflection of the tears we shed. You cannot feel the future when the tube is torn. I stare at the disaster, feeling tired and warm. The shattered glass bleeding on the bedroom floor, tragic limitation, asking nothing more. I try to read the temperature, but line is dead. A physical reflection of the tears we shed. You cannot feel the future when the tube is torn. I stare at the disaster, feeling tired and warm. Like the measurement was always true, a guaranteed reading meant for me and you. But breaking up the vessel lets the feeling out, a miserable inundation of a growing doubt. The red alcohol vanishes into the grain, a physical reminder of the endless pain. I try to wipe the liquid with the heavy towel, paralyzing ending to a lonely house. Sweep the broken glass, watch the color stain, fail to catch the heat, stand inside the rain. The damage was an accident we cannot fix, a devastating end into the bag of tricks. I realize that forcing in a natural gauge is dropping all the actors on a broken stage. Love requires a vessel that is safe and whole to regulate the climate of a moving soul. We shock the vital glass in a careless drop and engineered a failure that will never stop. I sweep the room in pieces in the plastic bin, accepting the disaster of the state I am in. Shattered glass bleeding on the bedroom floor. Objects built tragic limitation, asking knows the I try to read the temperature of a line is dead. A physical reflection of the tears we shed. You cannot feel a future when the tube is torn. I leave the broken vessel feeling tight and warm. The glass is broke. The heat is gone. I am done.
We pulled the silver slider to connect the seam, the temporary shelter in an ocean dream. A reliable defender on the visual map. But resting in the salt water takes a brutal toll. A chemical destruction of the nylon sole. The copper oxidizes in a toxic blue. A devastating ending meant for me and you. I try to pull the slider but the iron binds. A physical reflection of divided minds. We forced the little handle with the selfish rage. A violent interaction on a rubber stage. The teeth rip entirely from the nylon base. A miserable gap inside a frozen space. The mechanism shatters and the rubber tears. A devastating answer to the open breath. The rusted zipper tearing on the diving gear. I try to close the boundary, but the iron breaks. A loud and clear the body. When the track is dead, I stare at the disaster of the tears we shed. The rusted zipper tearing on the diving gear. I try to close the boundary, but the iron breaks. A loud and clear the body. When the track is dead, I stare at the disaster of the tears we shed. We acted like the tension was a given right, ignoring all the weather and the fading light. But pushing past the limit ruins all the line. A devastating ending for your heart and mind. The suit is split wide open in the gaping stare, exposing all the secrets to the freezing air. I try to force the handle but the iron screams. A miserable ending to the waking dreams. Pull the silver tab, watch the nylon grid fail to clear the tracks. Sink the weary ship. The ocean was an enemy we could not beat. A devastating ending on a lonely street. I realize that pushing an entangled gear is bringing all the damage to the given year. Love requires a sliding that is clear and straight. To navigate the journey and escape the fate. We jam the inner logic with the selfish pull and turn a working vessel to a broken fool. I drop the ruined rubber on the sandy floor, accepting that the fabric is beyond repair. The rusted zipper tearing on the diving gear. Watch it rip, tragic little ending of a broken year. Tear it off. I try to close the boundary, but the iron breaks. A loud and clear, the joining, escape the fate. I leave the ruined rubber and the tears we shed. The track is dead.
metal piece of magic getting brave and no. We saved it from a pocket in the early year, a shining piece of silver ringing loud and clear. It carried all the details of a minted face, a pristine little circle in a quiet space. But rubbing in the leather takes a steady toll, a physical erasing of the silver soul. The friction of the walking rubs the outer shine, erasing all the borders of the grand design. The silver plating vanishes and leaves the brass. It loses all the aesthetic of a royal prize, becoming something rugged under weary eyes. But dropping in the metal slot provides a thrill, a flawless operation on the machine sill. The metal gives us vanity to find the way, a reliable mechanic altering the fate. The tarnished coin falling in the narrow slot, a loyal little partner proving what we got. We wore the bitter edges to a custom round, and engineered a magic we have finally found. You cannot buy a future with a pristine shell. I dropped the faded copper and it works so well. The tarnished coin falling in the narrow slot, a loyal little partner proving what we got. We wore the bitter edges to a custom round, and engineered a magic we have finally found. You cannot buy a future with a pristine shell. I dropped the faded copper and it works so well. We used to judge the value by a shiny gleam, a superficial vanity inside a dream. But shining coins get stuck inside the iron trap, a miserable ending on a working map. The faded calibration meant for you and me. I hear the drop of metal hit the bottom tray, a beautiful procession at the close of day. Drop the copper down, hear the metal click, watch the magic work, learn the steady trick. The wearing is an asset in a rugged form, a brilliant little shelter from a passing storm. I realize that hoping for an untouched face is losing all the value of a working space. Love requires a rubbing of the outer shield to navigate the mechanisms in the field. We let the passing friction erase the silver hue and validated every magic that we knew. I grabbed the falling coffee from the iron grate, accepting all the devotion of a steady faith. The tarnished coin falling in the narrow slot, drop it in, a loyal little partner proving what we got. Watch it work, watch it work. We wore the bitter edges to a custom round, and engineered a magic we have finally found. You cannot buy a future with a pristine shell. I trust the faded copper and it works so well. The brass is dark, the drop is true. We are fine.
Yeah. A metal cut crescent on a rocky ground, the silver little vessel we have finally found. We bought it for the mountain with a level base, a flawless geometric circle in space. It carried boiling coffee in the morning chill, a reliable mechanic on the windowsill. But dropping on the granite takes a sudden toll, a physical distortion of the aluminum soul. The bottom takes a beating from the jagged stone, a miserable damage we are left to own. The perfect circle crumbles in a heavy dent, a visual recording of the time we spent. But sitting on the gravel brings a sweet surprise, a different mathematics to my weary eyes. The crooked base conforms into the uneven dirt, erasing all the danger of a sudden hurt. It holds the boiling liquid without any shake, a beautiful devotion from a past mistake. The damage redefines the way the metal stands, a reliable companion in the rugged lands. The dented mug sitting in the morning light, a loyal little partner making matters right. We took a heavy tumble on a bitter day, but engineered a balance, working out okay. You cannot hold a coffee seasons pass. For a flawless shell, believing in the vanity we know so well. The flawless little circle slip and tip away, defeating all the logic of a camping day. The ruined edges resting on the jagged ground, providing the devotion we have finally found. The coffee inside remains a steaming black, a liquid preservation never holding back. Hold the silver flask, feel the custom groove. Take a heavy drink, watch the shadows move. The ever is a blessing, looking out of place, a beautiful addition to an empty space. I realize I'm hoping for a rigid sphere, skipping all the history of a climbing gear. Love requires a bending of the outer wall to insulate the liquid and survive the fall. We hit the solid granite on a rugged trail and turn a broken metal to a winning tale. I hold the metal handle in the fading light, accepting the perfection of a starry night. A dented mug sitting in the morning light, drink it up. A loyal little partner, making matters right. We took a heavy tumble on a bitter day, but engineered a balance, working out okay. You cannot hold a coffee on a fragile glass. I trust the bent aluminum as seasons pass. The bass is bent, the cup is safe, we are fine.
Wooden bars ticking on the piano line, but pushing up the tempo past the given line introduces error to the grand design. The inner gear shatters in a sudden crack, the missing little iron on a moving track. The pendulum to failing and it drops the pace, a terrifying echo in a quiet space. The rhythm stumbles blindly on an uneven leg, a devastating error on a broken page. The music falls to pieces on the written sheet, a total cancellation of a sad defeat. The timing is destroyed and the motion stops. The broken metronome ticking on an awkward slant. I try to play the music but the center binds. You cannot play a melody without a beat. I stare at the disaster of a cold defeat. The broken metronome ticking on an awkward slant. I try to play the music but the center binds. You cannot play a melody without a beat. I stare at the disaster of a cold defeat. Was a constant, right? Defying all the boundaries in the fading light, but missing out the gear tooth breaks the holding spine and generates an error we cannot align. The wooden pyramid is standing on the desk, a monumental failure of a simple task. I wait to hear the clicking of a steady pace, but silence interrupts it in an empty space. Unwind the silver key, watch the pendulum swing, fail to catch the beat, lose the singing thing. The engine is a casualty of too much strain, a miserable skipping washing down the drain. I realize that forcing an excessive turn is guaranteeing that the inner coil will burn. Love requires a margin for the spring to breathe, to orchestrate a rhythm we can both believe. We crank the vital iron to a bursting point and shatter the foundation of the music joint. I leave the wooden pyramid upon the shelf, accepting the disaster of my broken self. The broken metronome ticking on an awkward slant. Let it free. The music but the center binds. You cannot play a melody without a beat. I leave the skipping needle to a cold defeat. The gear is dead, the time is wrong, I am done.
pipe. A silver pipe diving in a porcelain bowl, a designated exit for a cleansing soul. We ran the running water on the morning face, a functional mechanic in a quiet space. It swallowed up the sorrow in a steady swirl, a geometric draining of a heavy pearl. But letting all the debris wash into the hole is guaranteeing failure of the moving soul. The hair and all the residue begin to bind, a devastating blockage we have left behind. The pipe becomes a prison of a tangled knot, a miserable error on the truth we got. I run a heavy faucet but the water stops, a terrifying ending for the falling drops. The dirty liquid rises to the upper rim, a toxic inundation in the shadows dim. Spills across the ceramic on the wooden floor, a physical reminder we can clean no more. The passage is denied and the water swells, a miserable overflow where anger dwells. The clogged drain ruining the wooden board, a heavy accumulation we cannot afford. I run the water down but it refuses pass, a bitter inundation breaking down the glass. You cannot wash a future with a blocked up pipe. I stare at the disaster in a messy swipe. The clogged drain ruining the wooden board, a heavy accumulation we cannot afford. I run the water down but it refuses pass, a bitter inundation breaking down the glass. You cannot wash a future with a blocked up pipe. I stare at the disaster in a messy swipe. We acted like the tension would just wash away, a magic dissolution at the end of the day. But keeping all the arguments inside the core will only block the exit of the open door. The water needs a passage to absorb the gray, but we just built a barrier across the way. The liquid is escaping on the outer edge, a total separation on a narrow ledge. Watch the water ride, see the plumbing fail, let the liquid spill, lose the chosen trail. The center is a prison of the hardened ground, a devastating silence where we both are bound. Realize that forcing an excessive load is throwing off the map up on a working road. Love requires a clearing of the daily waste, to let the fresh water capture up the taste. We stop the fragile plumbing with the bitter grit and force the conversation to a sudden quit. I drop the ruined towels on the bathroom floor, accepting that the water will retreat no more. The clogged drain ruining the wooden board, watch it spill, a heavy accumulation we cannot afford. Let it drop. I run the water down but it refuses pass, a bitter inundation breaking down the glass. You cannot wash a future with a blocked up pipe. I leave the room in ceramic in a messy swipe. The pipe is blocked, the floor is wet, I am done.
Bought it with a rigid and a heavy beat. It slid across the timber with a halting click, but sliding up the totals takes a steady rub, a physical erasing in the wooden hub. The friction of the counting wears the angles down, the timber turns a polished and a velvet brown. The beats begin to travel in a flawless glide, erasing all the stopping on the inner side. We add the little moments of the passing days, a beautiful devotion in the summer haze. The timber trace, friction for a steady slide, a mathematical devotion we can never hide. The worn abacus counting up the passing year, a loyal little partner keeping matters clear. We rub the bitter edges to a soothing sound. You cannot sum a future on a rigid slate. I slide the faded timber, altering the fate. The worn abacus counting up the passing years, faded timber, altering the fate. We used to force the numbers in a rigid math, the superficial logic on a broken path. But time allows the timber to adjust the speed, providing all the answers that the lovers need. The clicking is a melody of steady trust, a physical devotion rising from the dust. I run my open finger on the wooden line and tally up the harmony of yours and mine. Push the timber up, hear the gentle click. Count the passing days, learn the steady trick. The wearing is a blessing in a solid form, a cozy little shelter from a passing storm. Hoping for an untouched beat is missing all the logic of the love we need. Love requires a rubbing of the outer grain to calculate the joy and to subtract the pain. We let the passing friction shape the wooden core and validated everything we bargained for. I slide the final circle in the fading light, accepting the perfection of a starry night. The worn abacus, counting up the passing years. Slide it down, loyal little partner, keeping matters clear. We rub the bitter edges to a soothing sound. You cannot sum a future on a rigid slate. I trust the faded timber, altering the fate. The beat is smooth, the math is right. We are fine.
Do, 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 do. Hair, a dedicated sweeper in the open there. We bought it with a rigid and a piercing spine, a geometric weapon on a working line. I scratched the heavy leather with an angry bite, a rough manipulation in the early light. But sweeping off the gravel takes a gentle toll, a physical erasing of the working soul. The friction of the leather wears the bristles down, a daily repetition dragging through the town. The bite and point surrender to a velvet flat, a miserable vanity we marvel at. The shortened hair delivers an amazing grace, a flawless navigation in a working space. It pulls the hidden luster from the fading dye without inflicting damage underneath the sky. The bristle loses danger to a steady sweep, a beautiful devotion that the lovers keep. The blunted brush gliding on the leather shoe, a loyal little partner shining up the view. We wore the bitter edges to a velvet slide, and engineered a shelter where the feelings hide. You cannot find a polish with a rigid thorn. I hold the faded timber, feeling brave and warm. The blunted brush gliding on the leather shoe, a loyal little partner shining up the view. We wore the bitter edges to a velvet slide, and engineered a shelter where the feelings hide. You cannot find a polish with a rigid thorn. I hold the faded timber, feeling brave and warm. We used to fight the surface with a heavy strike, a terrifying notion we were two alike. But time allows the fiber to adjust the shape, providing an exhausted and a sweet escape. The brush and mirror on the walking toe, a physical devotion that the lovers know. I drag the wooden handle in a steady pace and reveal the hidden beauty on the inner face. Push the timber down, hear the brushing sound. Sweep the bitter dust, find the solid ground. The damage is a blessing in a working form, a cozy little shelter from a passing storm. I realize that hoping for a piercing spike is missing all the logic of the things we like. Love requires a rubbing of the outer grain to polish up the surface and absorb the pain. We let the passing leather wear the anger out and washed away the center of a lingering doubt. I dropped the wooden handle on the dusty rack, accepting all the magic of a looking back. The blunted brush gliding on the leather shoe, brush it clean, a loyal little partner shining up the view. Make it bright. We wore the bitter edges to a velvet slide, an engineered a shelter where the feelings hide. You cannot find a polish with a rigid thorn. I trust the faded timber, feeling brave and warm. The brush is soft, the shoe is bright. We are fine. A plastic door hanging on a silver hinge. We push the heavy button to engage the tray, to load a little ribbon for a passing day. The spring inside the housing held a heavy bite, a flawless execution in the fading night. But snapping up the plastic takes a brutal toll, a devastating error on the working soul. We slam the little cover in an angry fight, refusing to maneuver in the fading light. The internal iron shatters in a sudden crack, a physical disaster never coming back. The door falls open heavy on a broken slant, a miserable error that I cannot grant. I push the plastic upward to secure the tape, but gravity refuses to oblige the shape. The structure loses logic and the door falls wide, a devastating ending on the inner side. The broken deck hanging with the gaping mouth, a tragic little detour heading to the south. I try to close the chamber but the spring is dead, a miserable failure of the words we said. You cannot play a future with a broken hold. I stare at the disaster, getting dark and old. The broken deck hanging with the gaping mouth, with the gaping mouth, a tragic little detour heading to the south. I try to close the chamber but the spring is dead, a miserable failure of the words we said. You cannot play a future with a broken hold. I stare at the disaster, getting dark and old. We acted like the tension was a given right, ignoring all the limits in the open night. But forcing a connection on a broken joint is leaving all the damage at the breaking point. The tape is falling outward on the wooden floor, a physical reminder it will play no more. I try to wedge a paper in the plastic gap, but nothing can recover such a broken trap. Push the plastic door, hear the hinge resist, fail to catch the tape, see the danger miss. The breaking is a poison to a steady frame, a devastating ending in a losing game. I realize that forcing an unyielding lock is throwing out the engine on a ticking clock. Love requires a chamber that is firm and tight to insulate the music in the fading light. We snap the vital iron in a selfish rush and force the conversation to a sudden hush. I drop the ruined plastic in the garbage bin, accepting the disaster of the state I am in. The broken deck hanging with the gaping mouth, watch it drop, a tragic little detour heading to the south. Lose the song, I try to close the chamber but the spring is dead, a miserable failure of the words we said. You cannot play a future with a broken hold. I leave the empty plastic
plastic wheel rolling in a heavy bass. We pulled the sticky ribbon for a clean divide, a perfect separation on the outer side. The jagged plastic border took a rapid bite, a flawless execution in the fading light. But pushing on the cutter takes a heavy tear, a microscopic damage in the open air. We slammed the plastic iron on a solid desk, a devastating error for a simple task. The little plastic teeth begin to snap and fall, a miserable failure answering the call. I drag the sticky ribbon on the broken edge, expecting a division on the narrow ledge, but nothing cuts the plastic and the ribbon drags a terrifying tangle of the holding flags. The tape revolves around the central spinning core, a messy complication meaning nothing more. The border loses logic and the cutting dies, a devastating tangle under weary eyes. The Snapped Dispenser dragging out an endless line, a miserable ending for your heart and mine. I try to make a cut, but the plastic bends. You cannot seal the future when the blade is dead. I stare at the disaster of the tears we shed. The Snapped Dispenser dragging out an endless line, a miserable ending for your heart and mine. I try to make a cut, but the plastic bends. You cannot seal the future when the blade is dead. I stare at the disaster of the tears we shed. The tension was an easy slice, a temporary payment of a given price. But losing all the boundaries makes the ribbon stick, a devastating failure of a working trick. The tape is folded over in a useless lump, a miserable error on a toxic dump. I try to use my fingers to divide the mess, but sticking only generates a deep distress. Pull the sticky line, watch the ribbon drag, fail to make a cut, lose the holding flag. The damage is a poison to a steady frame, a devastating ending in a losing game. I realize that forcing an infected gear is bringing all the damage to the given year. Love requires a border that is sharp and clean to separate the living from a fading scene. We broke the vital plastic in a selfish run and ruined all the logic of the sinking sun. I dropped the tangled ribbon in the garbage bin, accepting the disaster of the state I am in. The Snapped Dispenser dragging out an endless line, watch it drag, triple ending for your heart and mine. Lose the try to make a cut, but the plastic bends. You cannot seal the future when the blade is dead. I leave the tangled plastic and the tears we shed.